I was so excited for 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because the previous episode of Back to You ended on a really exciting note, and I'm pleased to say that this episode, the 12th episode, is not too bad. I think things went out the way I would have expected. Things developed in a way that's very believable. It's maybe not the funniest episode, but I really enjoyed it. This is, of course, directed by the wonderful James Burrows. And as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. I don't have too many thoughts on about half of the episode because about half is a flashback. But we'll get to that in a moment. It actually starts immediately where the previous episode left off, with Chuck and Kelly telling Gracie that Chuck is her father. And Gracie has questions, mostly because she believed she was the child of a donor. And then she realises that that wasn't the case. And we have the flashback. It's the beginning of the New Year's Eve party. And basically, Chuck and Kelly have different hair. And Gary has facial hair, a lot of facial hair. That's how we're determining we're in the past. And I won't go into too much detail about the flashback because I'm not that bothered about it. But I will say that it was edited into the main narrative quite effectively. The pacing was really good. We did get, well, I personally found one bit of the flashback funny. And I guess I'll just sum up the flashbacks now, but we do cut to it every now and then. And at the end of the flashback, or towards the end of the flashback, everybody is at Kelly's house for the party, and she manages to get most of them to leave, and Chuck leaves, but runs back around the house and comes in, and he has to do this, I think, 3 times, because people are still there, and I thought that was funny. I thought it was very well done. So the flashback is fine, but for me the most interesting part was how Gracie reacted, and how Kelly and Chuck handled this. And by that I mean Kelly superglued Chuck's hand to the table. And this comes after Gracie said, "I don't want Chuck to be my dad." Which has to hurt, saying that in front of Chuck's face. I'm not saying that that's not an acceptable thing for Gracie to feel. I think it probably is. But saying that in front of Chuck has to hurt. And then Kelly superglues Chuck's hands to the table because Kelly very briefly has to talk with Ryan and his friend Dennis. That definitely felt pointless to me. I like Ryan, it was nice that he was in it, but it still felt unnecessary. It felt like we were just cutting to that to break up the main action, and it was fine. It wasn't interesting, but I don't mind it too much. And then, while Kelly is busy with Ryan and Dennis, Chuck manages to unglue his hand from the table, and he goes to talk with Gracie. And it doesn't necessarily go according to plan, by which I mean he takes the head off of one of her dolls. Why wouldn't you? And Kelly then comes up and talks with Gracie, and I think Kelly managed to say the right things, and I think the most important thing that she said was, I didn't write it down, but it's something to the effect of, just as Gracie has to get used to Chuck being her father, Chuck still has to get used to Gracie being his daughter. Actually, there was another quote that I loved, and again, I didn't write it down for some reason, but at the beginning, Kelly was telling Gracie that it's different when she gave Gracie into trouble for lying about having a puppy, and Gracie pointed out that, of course, lying about having a puppy is nowhere near as bad as lying about having a father, which I think was a pretty powerful statement to make. I think everybody would agree that lying about having a puppy when you don't have a puppy is nowhere near as bad as telling somebody their father was just a sperm donor. And as I think Chuck pointed out in, I think, the previous episode, Kelly had robbed him of 10 years of being a father. I don't agree with Kelly's decision at all. However, obviously they're making steps in the right direction now. And after Chuck had had his talk with Gracie and Kelly was talking to her, he left the house and then he came back with a puppy. And Kelly said, just because you want her to like you as her father, you can't just buy her affection with a puppy. And, well, actually, yes, you can. And Gracie is very excited. And she called the puppy Norman, which is my name of choice. If I get a male dog, I'd love, current dream is to have a male Jack Russell called Norman. So that made me very happy. It's not a Jack Russell. I'm not entirely sure what it is. If anybody knows what the puppy is, please let me know. But I love the name choice. And while Gracie is off hugging her new puppy, Kelly hugs Chuck. and says, "I'm glad you came back." I don't fully know how I feel about Kelly's feelings towards Chuck. I don't know what she feels. Maybe she doesn't know what she feels. I think that would be fair if she was confused about her own feelings. I don't think she's in love with him, but I think maybe she's realizing that he gave her, well, Gracie, which is presumably the greatest gift there is. I don't know. I think maybe the next episode is going to be very interesting. I'm hoping, assuming, they tell people in the office or down at the TV station about Gracie, but we'll see. There are actually only 2 episodes left. There are, I think, an additional 3 episodes that were released on the DVD in the States, and I think they did air in Australia. This is according to Wikipedia, but they're not available in the UK, at least on Amazon Prime. So for me, I think there are only 2 episodes left, which will be devastating, but I'll complain about that when we get there. For now, I can sum up by saying 2 steps forward, 1 step back was really great, really thoroughly enjoyed it. The flashback scenes were fine. Norman, the puppy, was adorable, and I'm really looking forward to finding out what happens next.